Welcome back to the Lanterne Rouge Cycling Podcast presented by Zwift. This is the preview for the first monument of the year, Milano-Sanremo, here with Benji, as always, for what I think is one of the best races of the year and my favourite monument. It's a controversial opinion, of course, but we're going to get into the route, the favourites, the outsiders, how we think the race will play out. We have a decimated peloton right now with sickness, etc., and we'll try to keep you updated. So there might be late additions, removals. We're recording this on Tuesday afternoon. Maybe things change, but we will do our best. By the way, on Saturday, we have the LRCP Zwift group ride scheduled for 1 p.m. UK time, 2 p.m. European time for Australians and Kiwis. That's more palatable than before. Join me and Benji for an hour's social spin before La Classicissima hits the Cipressa and things get spicy in the finale. Much like the first 230 Ks of MSR, it'll be a social ride at a social pace, and that's why we've scheduled it at that time. So we'll follow the example of all the World Tour teams and just be keeping it pretty chill. It'll be a conversational ride, talking about what's happening in the race. Make sure to join the Lanterne Rouge Zwift Discord server before you start the ride to hear me and Benji's thoughts live during the race and the season to date. So thanks to Zwift, as always, for presenting the podcast. The group ride's been fun, and I can't wait for the one during Milano-Sanremo this Saturday. But the profile, 293 Ks, the Passo del Tercino in the first 140, nothing will happen. Then rolling along the coast, and then they do the Capo climbs, Capomele, Cervo, Capoberta. Again, nothing will likely happen. With 30 Ks or so left, they do the Cipressa. Now, the Cipressa is sort of where you want to start watching the race. It's not that steep, 5.6 Ks, 4.1% descent. Then the Poggio is where it usually kicks off. 3.6 Ks at 3.8% with a little 6% kick at the end. And then a descent into the Via Roma, about 6 Ks. So I like the route, Benji. Would you change anything? They don't change it.
I don't mind the route at all. I like the route. I think that it's good that there's this set place in the race that you know that the race can start kicking off. Some people try to attack on the Cipressa in some years, but that's not really the all-out goal of many riders because they know that's not going anywhere lots of the times. And then the Poggio is the moment where most of the eyes are looking at Sanremo, where stuff can happen. And that's intriguing because it's such a well-settled way that this parkour is done. It's had different parkours in the past, but we know for years now it's Cipressa plus Poggio at the end. And because of that, it's a very difficult race to win. And I want to mention a quote that Pogacar said. Pogacar said, Milano-Sanremo is the hardest race to win. He said that during the last week. Why is that?
It's because the group is so large coming into the Poggio. It's because the Poggio isn't very steep. It's because you can't predict how the group dynamic will play out. What if Sturven wasn't there last year? Then maybe it's just a sprint. What if SKA doesn't bridge across, pull for second, maybe Ewan wins? And that's the difference. It's not like a high mountain stage where the guy with the best legs is going to win. Positioning matters. And that's why I love it, because they keep the same route. You can compare from years and decades back how they race it. And Peter Sagan, Benji, do you think in a race like this, being the favourite's almost a huge disadvantage? I think so.
I think it's definitely a disadvantage. You've got so many different types of riders that can do well here, and it also matters whether you're going to be marked or not, because first of all, in the Poggio itself, there's some riders that will choose to go for the attack. There's some favorites that are more suitable to the attack on the Poggio than the sprint at the end, for example. So people know where a certain rider can make their move in this race. There's a few riders that are versatile in every area. So people, your competitors, they know at what point you can be attacking, at what point you can be trying something. We know that a rider like Pogacar has a skill to try and get away on the Poggio. We know that Wout van Aert has a bit of a sprint, but he can also try something on the Poggio. We know that some riders like, Stuyven last year, he can't really get away on the Poggio, so he has to figure out a way after the top to try and do something. So the competitors know your skills and know where people can attack, and as a consequence, they can predict where a certain rider can go. But on the other hand, if a lot of riders try in the descent, one can slip away, like Stuyven did last year, because Alaphilippe made a move just before Stuyven did last year, but Pidcock basically obstructed him on the left side of the road. As a consequence, it offered an opportunity for Stuyven to make that move and get away last year. If Alaphilippe didn't make that move, perhaps Pidcock would have responded to Stuyven instead. So all these tiny details can play into this, and that's what makes a lot of people say that Milano-Sanremo is kind of a lottery in that sense, where you gotta have some luck as well when it comes to the group dynamic. What if Ewan is in the second group and still has Gilbert there, a teammate, to work for him? That plays a role. Well, Gilbert, come on. He has to work for Ewan.
Does he know that? Yeah, he will. I think he will. He seems to be a rational person. But yeah, like last year, Stuyven solo, he won in a similar way to Cancellara, 2008, late move, fast on the just at the end of the Poggio descent. Van Aert 2020, 2-up sprint with Alaphilippe. 2019, a medium-sized group sprint won by Alaphilippe. 2018, Nibali got away on the descent. Group chase behind, not that good. One solo. Kwiatkowski, 3-up sprint with Sagan and Alaphilippe in 2017. Damar sprint 2016. Degenkolb and Christoph and Schielek all sprints back to 2013. So that's why I love it, because anyone can win it. Sprinter, descender like Nibali. Nibali was never the best puncher.
Yeah.
He wasn't the best puncher in the world when he won.
He's the GOAT, though, so we got to account that.
Well, exactly. If you use your brain, if you pick the right moment like Stuyven, you can win this race. That's why it's so hard to win. That being said, I do think waiting for a sprint, which Sagan often tried to do, Benji, is dangerous, or trusting your sprint. We saw it with Van Aert. Almost in the Olympics, like the smaller guys aren't going to want to work with you. And then it applies to Ewan as well. Who wants to take Ewan to this finish?
Yep.
Like no one in their right mind will want to do that. That's why it's so hard to win.
We mentioned this as a risk at the start. Unfortunately, after recording, it's been announced that Alaphilippe and Sonny Colbrelli are out with bronchitis from Milano-Sanremo this weekend. Fabio Jakobsen is in for Quick-Step. We'd expect Quick-Step to then be more likely to control for a sprint for Jakobsen or Ballerini. This means for Bahrain, likely Fred Wright and Mohoric have a free rein. So unfortunately, Alaphilippe out, sickness, continuing to run through the peloton. So just bear that in mind listening to the rest of the episode.
But yeah, let's get into the favourites for this race. It's Van Aert on Tuesday on Bet365. He's 360. So he's shortened up. Ewan and Pogacar are both $6, so they're given about a 16% chance to win, but huge margin, obviously. Alaphilippe, 4th favourite, 15s. Kragh Andersen, 5th favourite, 20. What's that?
Well, I think that Kragh probably has that because of the final stage of Paris-Nice where he got 5th, which was kind of a surprising result.
True.
He's had some meme attacks throughout Paris-Nice, but perhaps it's all in preparation for races to come, including Milano-Sanremo and so forth. We know that last year he was there in that final group. Sure, he wasn't the first over the Poggio, but he came in the descent back to that group and was able to make a move once Stuyven had already gone and was the rider that caught up with Stuyven. Now, I think that even if he played it tactically better, it would have been very hard for him to win in that final last year because he'd probably have sat up and that would lead the group behind to catch up. So I think he needs a specific way to win this race. And I think it's a similar way to what Stuyven did last year, where he needs to get away in the descent like that. Don't you think so?
Yeah, he can't go to the finish. He needs to solo and hope someone joins him. But otherwise, longer shots. Pidcock at 21. Ganna is the second in the order for Ineos, 26. Colbrelli, 26. Philipsen, 26. Stuyven, 29. Laporte, 34. Roglic, 34. Jakobsen, I don't know if he's going or not.
Doubt it.
He's 34. That's That's way too short. He has no shot, I don't think. Sagan 41, Moritz 41, Demar 41. I actually like. I think Demar's in good shape. Matthews 51. He crashed recently. He hasn't looked that good at Tirreno. Trenton 51, Asgreen 51, Ballerini 51, Lecoq 67, Nizzolo 67. Nizzolo, Benji. It's interesting. It's always interesting to me, like, you see Laporte shorter than Nizzolo, but Laporte's probably the third in the order for his team, but Nizzolo is ahead of, he's the leader probably of Israel here. What about Bergerdo, Benji? 150. Can he replicate it the other day?
I think one aspect to Milano-Sanremo is that positioning is key in this race, and the positioning at the foot of the Poggio is what matters so much. So you need a strong team or a bit of luck to make yourselves have a good position at that point in the race. Position on the Cipressa, yeah, it matters. You can't be at the back of the peloton, but if you're in the first half of the peloton, you probably will get over that Cipressa in the front part of that peloton without being dropped, and therefore will be able to move up after the Cipressa. Once you get to the Poggio, you need that good position. Last year, Van der Poel started that Poggio in, like, was it 20th position? We
25th.
Commented on it last year.
Awful.
It was not a good position. As a consequence, he had to spend so much energy on the Poggio to get to the front, which led to him not able to attack on the Poggio itself. He had spent the energy chasing. And then we look at the other people in that group last year, and we saw that Caleb Ewan was taking this on very differently, where he started off with almost the perfect position at the start of the Poggio.
So good.
Like, he was in the wheel of Ghana, I think,
Yeah.
or Van Baarle.
In Ghana and Van Baarle, he was eating zero wind.
Yeah, and the fact that draft matters on a climb like the Poggio, shallow gradient, 3.7, I think, is the average of that climb. Yes, the last part is pretty steep, but if you can benefit of that
They
draft,
averaged
the initial
38.
part, yeah, well, that's pretty fast. That's me on a flat section.
Hey, if I
Probably
averaged
not
that
even.
on the flat section, I'll be pretty happy.
Same.
Yeah, draft and positioning matters. And speaking of wind, I've looked at the forecast ahead of time. Apparently, there might be tailwind on the coast coming into the base of Poggio. That will be fast. After Cipressa, a little bit of crosswind just in the last bit before they turn right. And I think it's largely crosswind from their right on the Poggio. But it could change. I don't think it's cross-tail or tailwind, which suits the attackers. But if it's headwind and you're deep, like if MVDP was doing his move last year into a headwind, he might not even got to Van Aert. So positioning matters a lot. But yeah, we're going to talk about now the tactics of maybe it might not just be the Poggio. What will certain teams do? We want to start first with actually UAE Team Emirates, the man who just cleaned Tirreno and Strade Bianche, Tadej Pogačar, and also let you know we have a new supporting sponsor. Colnago have joined us for the Sanremo preview and recap later on Saturday. If you don't know Colnago, they have a deep history with professional cycling. They've won Milano-Sanremo 7 different times, from Merckx to Frère when he was on Rabobank in 2004 and 2007, and they make legendary bicycles that are winning and beautiful. Pogačar this weekend will be on the Colnago V3 RS that he's been on at Strade and Tirreno, and that's won 2 Tour de France's and 2 monuments in the last 2 years, engineered to be the perfect all-round bicycle. So we look forward to seeing what Pogačar and the UAE team can deliver on that Colnago this weekend. What do you think, Benji? Roglic said he might attack before the Cipressa. I don't see it. That's just nonsense.
Pogačar, you mean?
Yeah. Roglic said he might attack like with 50 Ks out as a joke.
I'm not so certain about that, to be honest. If we look at the team that UAE has at that race, then we notice that he's actually not the only rider that could get over the Poggio, in my personal opinion. They've got multiple riders that could do well here. And while Pogačar is a name that's being shouted all around as perhaps the favorite, according to many, after the races he's won recently, I see a very specific scenario where he wins, because I've got the feeling while he did get away from riders in Tirreno and so forth, the Poggio is still a 4% average gradient climb. It's not a 10% climb. It's not the most punchy climb out there. I don't see it that he's going to drop the competition that easily on the Poggio, as many people are saying. And when we look at the possibility of him winning, I'm more seeing it as, oh, he gets away with a few riders and beats them in the final sprint. Honestly, if he attacks on the Cipressa, I don't know what I can say about it. I don't see it. There's no way.
Possible. I think the game plan for Pogačar is the same as Kwiatkowski in 2017. I think he knows he has a very, very good reduced bunch sprint. I think if no one tries anything on the Poggio, he would be a little bit concerned, but someone always will attack. I think he wants to follow Alaphilippe, Pidcock, not actually eat the wind, because it's not like Tirreno where he's so superior, or Strade when Alaphilippe crash is so superior to the guys in the group and there's a steep climb coming. It's difficult to get. Well, first of all, even if he does a magic performance on Poggio, gets 3-4 seconds separation, can he hold it on the descent? I don't think he can. Famous last words. I think he wants a reduced bunch sprint where he gets dragged to the line, he takes his chances, and he tries and beats Pidcock, Van Aert, or Alaphilippe in that reduced group sprint after sitting on. It's like what he did at Liège and on Alaphilippe. Do you see it any different? Do you think they light up the Poggio? I think they should pace the Cipressa, Benji. They should try and get rid of Ewan.
Yeah, Ewan is one of those riders that a team like UAE should be scared of, but they also have the benefit that they've got multiple cards to play. Yes, Pogačar is the man you look at, but Matteo Trentin has been informed quite well this season, and he's a top rider that could also make a Stuyven-like move in the descent. Let's say that Pogačar, Trentin get in a group over the top, If they get over the top of the Poggio together in a group with Ewan, what are you going to do? You're not going to try and go for the sprint. You're going to try and attack with either Pogačar or Trentin. And then I'd be looking at Trentin to make that move, the attack move, because personally, despite Trentin having had a decent sprint at some parts in his career, I currently trust Pogačar's sprint a bit more. Is that wrong?
Based on the Samin, I think Trentin, he beat Hofstadter and De Bont in a sprint. I don't know. But I think you roll attacks with both. You can't go to the finish with Ewan with both. Even Van Aert, if Trentin's there, if Van Aert's there and Trentin's there, one of them should attack. Ulisi, I think he's never done well in Milano-Sanremo. He can't really help. I think he should just pace Cipressa super hard, to be honest. Covey. Real race though, Benji.
What does that matter? Do you think he can't compete in real races?
Well, Trofeo Laguelia, he won Murcia. I think this is different. It's different, Milano-Sanremo. You look at TJV Punch, I don't know. I think they should all ride for Trentin and Pogačar, and those guys who don't have much chance of winning, should pace really hard to make sure Ewan is. You want to isolate Van Aert. And then you can work Trentin and Pogačar. I think that's what they should do. Do you see Pogačar winning this race, Benji? Do you think the odds are too short? I think the odds are an overreaction to races which are not the same as MSR.
I agree. He's definitely one of the favorites for this race. But sure. I do want to mention that it's an overreaction in some way, because even on social media, he's seen as the big favorite now, which I don't agree with.
Yeah, that's
right. And I'm starting to notice that the riders that are mostly the favorites in Milano-Sanremo are often the ones that are not winning, because they're being marked to the bone the entire way up and the entire way down the Poggio. And that's what allows others to take opportunities from that. And examples like that are the years that Sagan was the favorite for this race, the years that Van Aert was the favorite. It wasn't so easy for Van Aert to win MSR either, to be honest. So I think being the favorite in the public eye makes it also a favored role in the rider's eye, and therefore you'll be marked a lot.
And remember Liège, he wasn't the same hype coming into it last year, and Liège 2020. Lombardia, same thing, whereas he's done the opposite here. He's flying so much. I think, do you put Roglic on his wheel on the Poggio? Who does Alaphilippe sit on? That's a difficult question.
Yeah, I think so as well. But when it comes to UAE, we've got the idea that they've got a chance of winning. They've got multiple riders to get over the Poggio, but so do other teams, to be honest. And then we look at one of the other teams that also has one of the favorites, which is Jumbo-Visma, and you just mentioned him, Roglic. What are they going to do with their team? What are they going to set up, and who are they going to see as the riders that could do something here? Because, in all honesty, I currently see Van Aert as a rider that can definitely do something here, but if he gets over the Poggio alone, then I'm scared for him.
I agree. I think the worst case scenario is what happened last year. Worst case, where he's in a group with Ewan, and there's a lot of rouleurs around him. You either want, I think him in a 2-up sprint with Alaphilippe and Pogacar, that's still a good outcome.
Yeah.
If you go to the base of the Poggio descent with a group of 15 and more coming back, and you don't know where the sprinters are, you don't know if Ewan's there coming back, that's a very, very difficult situation to manage. And they're all going to look at him like they did last year. And MVP didn't help him last year. What do you think? They paced the Cipressa last year. I've been thinking about it. I think they should keep the whole team together, make sure their front position for the base of the Poggio, just light up the flat with Nathan or whatever, or whoever, Affini, and then just make sure they're front on Poggio and use Primoz either to mark people or maybe to put Ewan under pressure. He said he's going to work as a domestique for Wout in the press.
Yeah, I'm not going to lie. I don't like presetting the strategy as, we got one leader and we're going to completely have Roglic as a domestique. That sounds the same as the Belgian strategies of the world champs, and it gives me the shivers. But when it comes to this team, we know that Benoit is not there. He said it in a Belgian podcast. Mike Teunissen is not here. I saw it on Willerflits, I think, this morning. And with those riders being absent, that's a bit of a loss for the team. I think Teunissen hasn't been outrageous this season yet, but Benoit is one that I do feel like they are missing something with in this team. And I think that looking at the squad, Van Aert, Roglic, Laporte, those 3 other riders that could potentially get over the Poggio near the front of the race. I think Laporte is likely a domestique in my personal eyes on this Poggio. But when it comes to Roglic, I think he should be not necessarily seen as a full domestique. I think there's opportunities there. Like, whoever the competition will be expecting something from Roglic when they have Van Aert.
I think, you got to get rid of Ewan. Okay, we're all scared of Pogacar. That's fine. If you go to the finish with Ewan, you're in big fucking trouble. So that's number one. Ewan, Demar type guys, I think first priority, they need to be gone. And whether that's, we saw last year, they set Poggio record, steady pace, just Ganna, steady pace, Ewan in good position. I'm not sure if that's Ganna's correct sound effect. I think Roglic surging, whether that's attacking or whatever, with Jumbo controlling the front on the Poggio, and then Ewan having to actually respond himself, is more how to play it. Are you happy, Benji, if Pogacar's in a group with Van Aert, Roglic, and Alaphilippe? Base of Poggio, what do you do?
In whose perspective? In Jumbo's perspective?
Yep.
I'm happy if we're at the top with 4 riders.
Sorry, the descent, so bottom of the Poggio descent.
Oh, bottom of the Poggio with 4 riders. Yeah, I'm happy with those 4. I'm not sure what to do yet, though. I think that at that point in the race, you've got Alaphilippe, you've got Pogacar. I think I dare to still go for the sprint with Van Aert at that point, because
100%.
Like, people might say, Roglic should try and attack from that group and try and do a reverse lead out, but probably there's going to be a peloton behind you, so I don't think you want to risk that at that point in the race. So I think going to the sprint is the thing there, and if a sprint is not good enough, then a sprint is not good enough, as simple as that. We've seen a sprint being decent this week, but it hasn't been outrageous against Pedersen either in Paris-Nice, so that's... But
where would Pogacar and Alaphilippe come in those sprints? You know, against Jakobsen, against Pedersen. Like, Van Aert still came second and third.
Yeah, that's true.
It's different in a small group.
Yeah, it's very different in my personal opinion. And, like, first of all, as the positioning is different, they're much easier in second or third wheel because, well, let's be honest, there's only 4 riders in the group.
Yeah.
But when it comes next to that, they can benefit off that draft. Van Aert is not really the acceleration sprinter, so he needs a longer sprint, and people will try and benefit from that. So he needs a fast pace, so Roglic would actually have to hammer it to make sure the pace is already hard, so that Van Aert can then do a sprint at a high speed and not necessarily from a slower speed in that group, you know?
I think without MVDP here, they have a really, really big chance. MVDP marked Wout out of the race last year. He marked him out of Gent-Wevelgem 2020. I think they take front position base of Poggio. They set a steady pace. They wait for Pogacar or Alaphilippe or Pidcock. They will attack on the steepest section. One of them, you respond. And I still think Benji, we saw it on loop. If Wout's on his own, if there's no Primoz, which you have to account for, look at how Cancellara won in 2008. Look at how Sagan has never won this race when he's been the heavy favourite. If Wout is in the base of the Poggio descent, like last year with the group, he's going to get attacked, or they're going to sit on him and it's just a bad outcome. Omloop, TT away, hot take from me, if you're the first rider soloed across the line, you win 100% of the time. Easier said than done. But I think they just need to account for that because people are still scared of his sprint. But do you see Roglic winning this race? He is short in the market.
I think there's a possibility for that, and I think that Jumbo should probably use that in some shape or form, but I've not realized where yet. I think if you come to a situation like you mentioned where you're in a group in the descent of the Poggio with Roglic and Van Aert and Ewan, then you need to try and get away with someone, and Roglic is a rider that can get away, I think. I don't think Van Aert will not be marked at that point in the race. So I think Roglic has more of an opportunity there. But the question is, has he already spent his energy on the Poggio itself? We don't know that in that scenario. So I don't know. I think that Roglic winning is a scenario where he benefits of the marking of Wout van Aert.
I agree. And people that want to pull with Wout in their wheel, which is a good situation. Third favourite, or joint second favourite rather, Caleb Ewan on Lotto Soudal. He's come second in this race twice. The whole team is here for him. None of them probably will make it over the Poggio, except maybe Gilbert in G2 or 3. Their whole team is a sprint lead out for him into the base of the Poggio in good position, and then he has to freelance like he did last year. Last year, he incredibly smart on the climb, the way he did it, slid back. So it's all about him being first 5 wheels into Poggio. I don't see it, Benji, because no one wants to go to the finish with him.
While that is true, I think it's very difficult for Caleb Ewan to win a race like this, and it needs to fold in perfectly by other riders doing stuff for him, because the only scenario where I see this possible if he has a companion in his squad that also gets over the Poggio with him, that can actually pace the second group when someone attacks and so forth.
Exactly.
And the team that they have, they've got Van Meers, Van Gils, Kluge, Sweeney, Frison, and Gilbert actually confirmed for this race now. Wellens is not there, like a rider I would see potentially making the front group and therefore being able to pace for this man. Gilbert, I think his days are kind of past in that sense, and
Sweeney could. We don't know. It's unlikely. No, it's unlikely.
Yeah.
But he sit there he did the best 5-minute test of Lotto in their training camp, because I actually did the climb when I was in Xavier, the Granadeja climb, beautiful climb.
Yeah.
Best 5-minute test, 23 years old. Maybe he can stay in G2 and pace. But the problem is, by the time he comes back, Nibali is gone. Or like the attack is gone and it's too late. He needs another sprint team who wants a sprint, like Quickstep. But Quickstep don't want a sprint.
Yeah, I agree in that. It's very difficult, the scenario, to see Caleb Ewan win, although I do still consider him one of the favorites, because Milano-Sanremo is the kind of race where everything falls together based on group dynamics, and if a lot of people try to attack in the descent, then they try and counter each other, and therefore the group comes back together because people keep countering each other, then that benefits Ewan. But last year we saw that when people went, the other people looked at Caleb Ewan because he's the rider that's sitting there in that second group with the best sprint. And the question you're asking yourself then, if Wout and Ewan are in that second group again, like last year, shouldn't Wout try to attack and counter in the same way Søren Kragh did?
Yep, I think so. I think Ewan is I don't know, he's not been winning that much this season, but this is his big target, and he's so fast. And Wout's sprint doesn't actually look as good as his Tour de France sprint last year either, so where he still lost to to Caleb behind Sturven. Ineos, Hayter, Puccio, Kwiatkowski, Pidcock, Viviani, Ganna. I think Ganna's going to get a free rein this year, unlike last year. You reckon?
I've heard quite some disturbances that were saying that Mr. Ganna would get a freer role this time around, and that makes it interesting because he was the man that got the team to the front before the Poggio, and if he is not the man doing that, then I think Kwiat takes up that role this time around, because can Puccio do that? That's the big question. And the thing with Ganna is, he's the kind of Italian that might actually generally try to attack on the Cipressa. But he's been riding very well this season so far. His climbing was solid in was it Provence, I think, in that uphill sprint to Manosque. The third stage, the one that Kokar won ahead of Alaphilippe and Ganna.
And UAE.
What if he actually genuinely tries to powerhouse the entire Poggio for himself this time around?
No. He should be protected rider, and he should try solo like Sturven.
Yeah.
He can win that way. That's how he should play it. But who's going to pace? Who's going to even put them into good position? It's not going to be Hayter. Hayter's here. This race, right, 2021, we would have been like, Hayter, perfect race for him. He's going to enter Poggio 100th wheel at best. No, seriously. And you can't win from there. It's not possible. So, I think Ganna's their best chance because Pidcock, who knows how he'll race, but
I disagree.
I think Ganna.
I think Ganna's a big chance. I agree with that, but I think Pidcock is still the rider that I see the biggest chance here. He's still seen as a bit of an underdog in the list there, and he's got that sprint. We know that from, what was it, Omloop last year or Kuurne, where he got a top 5? I think it was Omloop or something, but I'm not 100% certain. And we know that he's got that kick on the Poggio as well. We know that if people go on the Poggio, he's likely going to be in the top 5 riders there, in my personal opinion. So he can win from those two scenarios. What he can't do is try like last year to drop people in the descent, because the people he's up against can descend as well.
Yeah, I think maybe if he plays it smarter, don't attack in front of Van Aert on the descent like last year. I don't think that's very effective. But they're the main favourites, really. What about Ballerini? Ballerini's looked awful.
Yeah, when it comes to Ballerini, I think he's the kind of rider that can be in that second group trying to come back and just come short by 10 seconds at the end. But I don't see him getting over the Poggio in the elite group, that's for certain. And when it comes to the rest of the squad, Asgreen, last year he was setting up the team just before the Cipressa already started. So I don't see Asgreen being a candidate to win this race. But then again, he's had good climbing performance in the past. He was decent at Strade. Is there a situation where he can be that Ganna or Stuyven attack that to try and get away in the descent? Or
it's worth
at least
trying.
The flatter parts? Yeah.
It's worth trying. But I think Quickstep are looking... We don't have their full start list. I think even if they bring Fabio Jakobsen, speaking for both of us here, I don't see it.
Lampard is out, so
he
said that on a Belgian podcast as well. And honestly, I think I don't think he was going to play a big role anyway. Is it harsh to say?
Maybe in positioning the guys before the Poggio is possible. But they're all the favourites, apart from SKA, who Benji and I do not consider one of the top 5 favourites. Well, I don't, at least. Moving on to the outsiders, which we'll try and whip through a little bit quickly before our predictions of how the race will play out and the winners. First one, last year's winner, Sturven. No Pedersen, no Simmons for Trek. I have no idea what they're doing.
Yeah, it's an interesting concept, because I think they're probably saying, okay, Stuyven won it last year. We want to give him another opportunity in the race that he won to show that he deserves that leader spot. And to be honest, the way Pedersen is climbing, he could probably get over the Poggio in one of the earlier groups and therefore compete in a sprint if that comes down to it. So I don't see it that way. Not having him at Sanremo was a bit meh, in my personal opinion. Simmons as well. He's been very strong at Tirreno. This is the kind of climb as well, the Poggio, where I do see him doing well. And Simmons could follow Alaphilippe and so forth on the Poggio. Not going to lie, depends on the positioning, but I believe in that. And I'm slightly disappointed that they only sent Stuyven, because last year, how much chance did he have, you think, to win?
2% before the race. And he took the 2%. Just because he took the 2%, great, like congrats, it doesn't mean it's any less of a victory. Is it replicable? No. Like,
It's
it's
very
still
difficult.
very, very unlikely he wins. The race has to play out in a very specific scenario, as we've already said multiple times. So I'm surprised, because if I'm Van Aert, I'm like, thank God Pedersen's not here, because if you drop Caleb, you might not drop Pedersen, and Pedersen's faster than him right now in the sprints, or it has been. So yeah, I was very, very surprised by that. That's Trek. I don't see it for Sturven unless it plays out in a certain way. Intermarché, I don't think Biniam Girmay can get in good position before the Poggio. Benji, he struggles with positioning.
Yeah, I agree in that aspect. Nonetheless, I do hope he can, because I
Be
might have
cool.
tweeted on the 1st of January that Girmay is going to win Milano-Sanremo, so got to stand by it now. But I agree that positioning before the Poggio is a difficult part. They have had a good sprint train this year, but can they transform that into using that sprint train to position these riders before the start of the Poggio? I think that's a rather difficult aspect. Bistrom has been relatively strong. Pascalon has done decent stuff this year already, but it won't be easy. And their second candidate is Christoph, and I think the climb is too hard for Christoph, even in this form. I just don't see it for him here. He's probably going to get first in the second group over the line.
Brady's come back out of retirement. Bring Luca Paolini back out of retirement. Instrumental in Christoph's MSR win back in the day. Cofidis have got Coquard, who's been really good this season. He should be making group 2 or 3, probably group 3 at the front of the good climbing sprinters with like Aaron Baru and co on the Poggio. If Aaron Baru's not solo already winning. Benjamin Thomas, do you use him to attack, or do you use Benjamin Thomas to pull groups back for Coquard in the sprint?
I think Benjamin Thomas is very strong this year, and ironically, I think that the Thomas Coquard duo is a very strong one for
It's
MSR, and that could play a role in Thomas trying to position Coquard on the Poggio, and if they're lucky, Coquard can then follow the attacks a tiny bit in a similar fashion as Ewan did last year, kind of trying to slipping back on the Poggio, trying to follow riders like a Matthews that will try and come back to the actual punchers, trying to get away, stuff like that. I think that's a really good duo for that. But is Tomano the rider that could get over the Poggio in the same fashion as Stuyven did and try something like Stuyven? Because I kind of see it.
If I was their DS, I'd be the most hated person, and I'd make Thomas just pull groups back so Coquard could get a top 6 for points, top 7 for points. See, like, that's actually what I would say. And top 5 at MSR for Coquard is a huge result, points aside. So that's what I would do with them. I'd love to see them in the top 5 with either of them. Alpecin don't have MVP. That changes the race significantly. Philipsen looks like being their man. They do have other punchy guys, but it's like Sparagli and co. Philipsen, it wouldn't surprise me if he popped up in Group 2 coming back with Ewan. It really wouldn't surprise me, and I would be terrified if he was coming back. But is this his first ever edition? Probably.
Yeah.
No, he's done it before.
You've always been a bit higher on Philipsen than I am.
I think he's the GOAT.
He's shown a lot when it comes to the pure sprints. He's shown proper stuff on a hilly terrain as well with a sprint at the end. But MSR is something different, I think. And when it comes to their squad, they should have been able to tell last year to Van der Poel that positioning was very ideal or necessary for the Poggio. And is Alpecin going to be able to position Philipsen perfectly before the Poggio? With the rouleurs they have that are not assigned yet because their team is not complete yet, on paper they should have the strength for it, but I'm so on edge when it comes to Philipsen. I think he might land in the Christoph group.
Probably, yeah. That's most likely. FDJ, I really think Demar is coming into good shape. He's won this race before. He needs it to play out for a sprint and Ewan to come back and somehow beat Ewan. It really would not surprise me if Demar came top 3 if it's all in a sprint. Otherwise, that's their entire option. Total Energy, Sagan looks awful, but he looked awful before MSR last year where he still came 4th. I think Turgis got to have a free roll, Benji.
Yeah, certainly. Turgi has been quite strong this year, and we've perhaps not seen it in results necessarily all the time. Yes, we had that Two Alps Maritime de Var that looked a lot like the Poggio a bit in that first stage where Ewan won ahead of Turgi, I think. And that's the kind of stuff that he can do. He can be able to be in a more front group. But the question there is, it's still winning is a different thing. I think he can top 10, but winning is going to be hard, I think, for Turgi. And when it comes to Sagan, this is the kind of race where you can not see him all season and then suddenly he can pop up in the top 5 of Milano-Sanremo on Saturday. Was that not what he did last year?
Exactly what he did. Yeah, he had COVID and he was awful, and he was fourth. It's like, what the hell? Similarly, Michael Matthews. Don't be surprised if he comes top 5 in a reduced bunch sprint. He's raced this race many times. He even, I think, last year or the year before, can't remember. Last year, 6th, 2020 third. So back-to-back top 6 results. Don't be surprised if he's there again, but he's a little bit off, I think, after crashing. DSM have SKA for a late flyer. Former winner Degenkolb here, but he looks not good. And Bora Benji. Bennett's not making it, and Schachmann just can't win. There's no way he can win.
Yeah, I don't know what the reason was that Schachmann DNS'd on the stage 4 of Paris, so I don't know if there's like sickness or something we need to think about. But I don't see it when it comes to Schachmann either. If he gets into a group with other riders, the other riders are likely going to be faster. And the only scenario that he could get away is in a Stuyven manner, but I don't see him as a Stuyven candidate necessarily. He's like just under that for trying to get away solo. And on the climb, he's not strong enough. And I feel like he's gotten a bit worse over the last year, which is unfortunate because I liked him bobbleheading at the front.
Often he would change the race by bringing people back. He brought Ewan back last year, but he can't win himself. Speaking of hoping for a group sprint, though, Israel, Nizzolo, that's what they want. Hope for a top 5, probably. Bahrain, right? Tratnik, Colbrelli, Moric, Caruso. It looks good on paper, but Colbrelli's a bit sick.
Yeah.
Moric's got some sort of issue.
Yeah.
Fred Wright, free Fred Wright.
Yeah, I think so as well. Fred Wright was very strong on the last stage of Paris-Nice. He was 28th, but that doesn't tell you the story of the race because he was pacing for half the stage in the group of Hague. He's still in the last 30 kilometers until the bottom of the Col d'Ains and then started dropping back. So I swear he gets over the Poggio quite towards the front, and I believe in Fred Wright top 5ing Milano-Sanremo. Is that a lot?
I just went for a ride with Hague, and he was like Paris stage 8. He was a tank, Fred Wright, pulling for Hague. So he's in good form. He likes the cold, likes these sort of climbs. Free him. Movistar, I think, is our final team. Aaron Baru, Garcia Cortina, the pairing is not working very well so far. But did Aaron Baru top 10 this last year?
I think he probably got close. Yes,
he came 7th.
Of course he came 7th. How can we forget? And the year before as well. So he's going to get 7 again. As simple as that. We just know it. 7th. The end. Movistar discussion done.
Okay. Aaron Baru top 10. He's going to lose the sprint to someone. But yeah. That's what he'll do.
In the second group.
Okay. That's all the outsiders we've gone through. I still think a favourite is winning this. I think UAE paced the Cipressa, trying to put Jumbo on. Not Jumbo. They can't put Jumbo under pressure. Putting Ewan under pressure. You want to drop his domestiques. Even if you don't drop Ewan, you want to drop Kluger and co. So they can't bring him into good position for Poggio. I think Poggio Jumbo will take front position. I think they will wait and be patient. Mark with Roglic. And then it's just a shit fight afterwards, and we'll see what happens. But I think Van Aert is winning, Benji.
Okay. When it comes to my winner of Milano-Sanremo, Jesus, I have no clue. I think, let's start with my podium. I think Kokar is going to podium this race. I think that's possible. I think that when it comes to the rest of the podium, Caleb Ewan's going to get 2nd again. Just to
so you think a solo winner?
I think yes. And I think the solo winner is going to be Ganna.
I see it. I do see it. He's in such good shape.
Come on, you chose the favorite, so I'm going to choose something completely different.
I think it's going to be 2017 style. I think it's going to be Van Aert, Pogačar, Alaphilippe, Pidcock in a group, and Van Aert wins the sprint.
Would be lovely. Would be
It'd
great to
be
see.
very, very entertaining. That's why I love this
Wait,
race. Yes?
we need a strong group like Van Aert, Pogacar, Roglic, and Alaphilippe, but then like one rider we don't expect to be there, like Fred Wright, to get that 5th spot.
Fred, like, the thing is, if he's with Colbrelli, but Colbrelli looks under. What about Benoit? Nah, Benoit can't do it. I reckon Marcus Hulgaard or someone.
Nah, he's been very disappointing this year so far.
Yeah.
I'm not going to lie. I was so high on him, and Valenciani was decent, got top 15 in 2 stages, but then we look at what comes after. DNF at Omloop, DNF at Kuurne. Not a single stage in the top 100 at Paris-Nice, and then DNSing stage 6. Something's off, most likely. I don't see it, Marcus. I'm sorry. Forgive me.
Yeah, I think I'm struggling to find. It's not like Strata wear goggles there. It's going to be top guys. It has to be top guys. Even though EF, I would have said Bettiol in there, but I think he's been unwell, and EF, they've got Bissiger doing it. Don't know how. Like, I don't see it for Bissiger. So I think it's going to be the favourites. Boring answer. I think Van Aert wins. Whether that's value or not, that's not what I'm saying. That's what I think will happen. But yeah, any last thoughts on MSR, Benji? Will we see Pog come back down to earth? I feel like people are going to say we're underrating him.
Probably. We are probably underrating him in some way or shape or form, because I think a lot of people want to see different winners at different races. Is that something against Pogacar? No, not necessarily. He's a wonderful rider. He's fucking glorious in amazing races so far this season, but I kind of feel like being a contrarian this time around.
I know. Even with the Colnago sponsorship this pod, we've gone against Pogacar. So
Ooh.
I guess we're hedging our bets, because if he wins, the recap it writes itself. But that was our Milano-Sanremo preview. Long as always. Hope you enjoyed it. We love doing the previews. They're some of our favorite podcasts. We'd love you to join us on Saturday for the Zwift LRCP group ride during La Classicissima, 1 p.m. British time, 2 p.m. European time. We will put out on the Twitter account at Lanterne Rouge CP the times in various time zones and the event link, etc., which should be down below later this week as well. Love to see you there. Join the Discord for that. And Benji and I will be talking trash during the race. Maybe we'll be telling Aaron Brew to attack, even though Benji forgot he came top 10. Anyway, until Saturday afternoon, ciao.